cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. Our contemplations of the cosmos are tingling in the spark, catching a voice, a faint sensation as of a distant memory of falling from a great height. We know we are approaching the grandest of mysteries. The size and age of the cosmos are beyond ordinary human understanding, lost somewhere between immensity and eternity with our tiny planetary home, the Earth. For the first time, we have the power to decide the fate of our planet and ourselves. This is a time of great danger, but our species is young, curious, brave. It shows much promise. In the last few millennia, we have made the most astonishing and unexpected discoveries about the cosmos and our place within it.
Oh, yeah. It is I, the old wolf, coming at you live again. Starting off tonight's show with a little something different. The mad space between stars. Psychomanteum, who will be performing again October 28th, 29th over at the Rockin' Oddities Con in Saratoga Springs. I'm going to have Matt Smith from the band join me in a few minutes. As always, I like to start off the show with the disclaimer elements. The views, expressions, thoughts, language, everything you're going to hear tonight are pretty much mine and mine alone. The people who come on, I always try and leave it open for them to speak freely. I do not believe that language should be a restriction. So, again, take what you need, leave the rest behind. I'm a big fan of lots of different styles of music, and these guys definitely have a very original and interesting take, very emotional stuff that they're doing. A good band. You know what I mean? Now, part of what I also like to do within these types of interviews is to try and understand where the music comes from, because you can take a snapshot of a band, you can take a snapshot of a song, and it's only going to give you a small piece. It's only going to tell you a little bit of the story. So I like having people on to talk about what their inspirations are, what the actual message is, and then, sometimes to get into other contexts. Since kind of, becoming friends with these guys online and stuff like that, one of the other members, Brian, had posted something really interesting today, and I saw it, and I immediately was like, yeah. And he was getting into the whole narrative of conspiracy theories, and, you know what I mean? If you got to come out there and you got to throw your shit up there on the wall and hope it sticks, then you don't really have much of a fucking case. And I love that. I was just like, oh, yeah. He's coming exactly from the right perspective, the right angle. And a lot of people are afraid to express that type of stuff out there because the narrative is if you don't fall in line with this or that, somehow you're fucking less than, or you're that, or, any number of analogies. So I found it really refreshing in, the first post I see from him was just something that I was just like completely, totally behind. So again, the little things that connect us, even though styles and genre elements may differ, the emotional framework, the reasons why people make music the way these guys do, that's universal. You know what I mean? And they reflect not only their experiences, but their perspectives on the times. So again, a lot of bands: Suicide Puppets, Alloy Rain, Annika, The Hard Luck Soul, Psychomanteum, as mentioned, The Tradition, Brick by Brick, Black Belt Jones, Old North End, Alter OV Next, and Lock 9. Great lineup of music. October 28th, 29th. If you want to learn more, you can go online to rockodditiescon.com. Tell Jem I sent you. The old wolf says that's the place to be Halloween weekend. And I'm going to play some other tracks later on in the evening from some of those other bands. I'm kind of, doing this deeper now, push towards, the last couple of weeks before the event's really going to be a cool event. We're not just talking bands. We're talking belly dancers. We're talking snake charmers. We're talking witches. We're talking vampires. We're talking all kinds of stuff. A lot of really cool people, a lot of great music, and a lot of incredible magic. Last night, I had David Childers on, who's a really cool guy. He's one of the paranormal investigators that are going to be there. Next week, I'm going to have David Spinks on. He's another paranormal investigator who's also going to be there. So, there's going to be so much stuff there that it's impossible to really even just fit it in. As much as I would love to get everybody on the shows and talking to them, there was just no way possible with, let's be blunt, the limited amount of time and airtime that I have to work with. But I'm really glad that I'm getting these guys on. I also wanted to mention and say hello. I see my sisters Christine and Elizabeth in the audience, longtime followers and friends. I see Matt Smith's in the chat, so he's going to get to dance on both ends. So I'm going to play a really cool video from another one of the bands that are going to be at the Rockin' Oddities Con while I go get Matt on the line, and then we're going to come back and we're going to focus on his band and their perspectives and everything groovy that goes that and see where the conversation goes. But this video really, I think, to some degrees, it really captures the spirit of a lot of the music that's going to be there. It's going to be off the hook. It's going to be wild. It's going to be powerful. But like I said, let's give a little bit of a dip while I go get Matt on the line. So here it is. Yes, okay. It's a little track by Brick called The Hunger. And just fair warning, if you are triggered by horrible Muppets, you may want to run away now, because this one's definitely off the fucking hook. So enjoy a little bit of Brick by Brick real quick, and then we're coming back live with Psychomanteum.
Hey, pal, what's in the basket? The hunter. All right, weirdo. You're out of here.
Thank you very much. We're Brick by Brick from Albany, New York. We like shots. Bring us some whiskey. Bar is open over at the merch table. Give us your money.
All right, guys, let's go. Let's pack this shit up.
Not me. I'll meet you out there. I gotta pinch one off.
Yeah, me too.
No, come on. Pack up. Let's go.
I
All right, so yeah, welcome back. Listen, I got Matt Smith on the line live from Psychomanteum. Say hello.
Hello.
Say, we got a bunch of fucking wolves in the house, man.
How's it going? Thank you for having me on the show and showing support and playing Psychomanteum. That is one of the coolest things that I could think of. I mean, just I heard the very beginning, heard the little bit of Mad Space when I was turning it on, and that was like the little hairs in the back of your neck.
I know, it's always great when you do
that. I mean, that was like the coolest thing, and it's like, no matter how many times you've played it and heard the song, it's like, oh my God, it's like hearing it all over again. So that was very cool, and I thank you for that.
No, listen, it's my pleasure. As a musician, I know the feeling, and this is the simple analogy of strength in numbers. It's part of what Jem's in the audience hanging out. She says, "Say hello." I don't know if you can see
hello.
The chat. Technology being what it is, it doesn't always cross over correctly between YouTube and Facebook, so we'll just kind of fucking piecemeal it. But when we had set this up, I wanted you guys to have the freedom to speak without the language restrictions. I've been playing you guys on the FM radio show, and the first track I heard from you guys was the Mad Space, and I just loved it. I love how you guys segued a couple of different elements of things, but kept it within this original. It has the thrash elements. There's no way. There's no way to get around.
Oh yeah, we're all in our. Well, I just turned 51 last week, so that's what we grew up on. The old school, like the old Slayer, the Celtic Frost, the old Metallica, things like that. So there's no way that it couldn't sound like that or wouldn't sound like it.
Let me ask you about those influences, because I've been listening to some of the different tracks, and I pick up little hints of things, not like like it's oversaturated with it, but like one of the things that caught me was I heard a little bit of what I thought was a little bit of Suicidal Tendencies influence as well too.
That's very cool, and I take that. That's a huge compliment. I never see that. That's one of the coolest things about other people hearing it, because like I said, I've heard the songs a million times, and I can be like, oh, I think that kind of sounds like that. But when someone else hears it with like a new, fresh set of ears, it's like, oh wow, it's it's like a painting or another piece of art. The artist has what they think about it, and then someone else looks at it and completely different interpretation on it. Which that's one of the coolest things about it. Different eyes and ears.
Well, some of it also too, and you mentioned this, as we come up, as we go through the years, especially starting when we're younger, music tends to influence us, whether we want it to or not. It just happens, especially the things that we're into. So when you mentioned that time period, you look at bands like Slayer, Stormtroopers of Death, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Anthrax, there was a lot of subtleties. You would have the harder, deeper pit tracks, as we like to call them back in the day. And then you had other things that had a little bit of influence. And I hear that. I hear the subtle little influences, but you've taken it and kind of wrapped it now into, this is, we've been along this road. We've been on a journey. Now let's kind of take it all and throw it out there to you almost in like a collage type of thing. An old school, Jesus, I can't even remember the fucking, like the slideshow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a big wheel, so you can hear all these different influences popping out but none to the degree that you would say, oh, these guys are a fucking Slayer copy band,
Yeah.
or they're this or that. It's unique. I mean, that much is for sure. It is really fucking unique.
Well, when Brian and Pete are the founders of the band back in 2017, when they had started that, I was in a previous band called Hungry Jack, we were like the welfare choir. We all wore costumes, and it was like, crazy, punky metal kind of stuff. And we kind of, we had been playing on and off for like 20 years, and we, just got sick of each other. And I saw somewhere online that they were looking for a singer, and then I just kind of like, what the hell? And I liked, they had a track on Reverb Nation, and I really liked it. And I started talking to Brian, and I believe that their original concept that they were going to do is they were going to have different singers come in and kind of do it like that, but they found out that it was kind of difficult. And when I first started playing with them, they actually had another guy singing, and the band started off with two singers, and we had a bass player, and then things kind of evolved. We ended up getting another bass player, and then Rich left the band, and I was singing, and then Brian ended up picking up singing, and I am still to this day, I don't know how he can manage to play, as he does and sing, but that's what happened. And we ended up becoming a 3-piece, and Brian does the bass duties while he's singing and playing guitar too. It's just blows me away.
Well, it looks like, and I have, for the folks at home that are actually watching this and not just listening, it looks like he's got an 8-string, if not more, guitar going there. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, it's an 8-string, and he has a pedal that he uses. It's called an Axe Effects, and I'm very novice. I don't know much about the effects.
I know exactly what I'm a guitar player. I know exactly what he's fucking doing, and that's really cool.
He can do a lot of different things, and there's a way that he makes the bass notes come out when he's playing, and we've played places and people will look when he's playing, and they're like, where the hell's the bass player? So it's neat to have that aspect, and just the different style and tones that he comes up with. It's kind of like an artist painting a picture, all the different sounds that he comes up with. It's amazing.
Well, by using the technology, he's been able to kind of get around, what you and I both know is one of the greatest hurdles in any band, is maintaining that chemistry dynamic. Sometimes 5 people is great, but sometimes, 3 is better. And especially in the analogy of performing live, because you've done, track work and you perform live, so you understand, when you go into a studio, you can do all these other crazy extra things. You can overdub, you can rip shit apart, put it back together, but taking it out and playing it live, you don't get that type of extra support. So you really have to have it organized as a performance. And it really does. It fits the sound. Like, you can really hear it. And it gives it a unique element because it is just one person handling basically the bottom end and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah. It's this is going to sound weird, but it's like if we were back in like the 1920s, it would be like Brian would be like the band leader, making sure everything was boom, boom, boom on, point, and everything was going. And then Pete is in the back, just holding everything together. And I'm standing in the front, screaming.
Well, listen,
So,
I mean, as a front guy, you're also, for all intents and purposes, you're the MC. You're weaving the magic. You're getting the crowd into it. You're directing the flow of things on top of, doing whatever you're doing vocally. So that gives, both Brian and Dave, obviously, the extra support, if you will, to be able to just go off into those directions. And you guys have a natural flow. Like, one of the things I've always hated about some thrash bands is that it just becomes so ridiculously over the top that you can't really take anything away from it. It almost becomes just pure fucking rage. It's uncut.
Yeah.
And you and I both know that, listen, in a moment, in a situation, that might work, but for doing a whole goddamn show, it doesn't fly. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it becomes redundant. You guys don't follow that pattern. You make a left over here, then you come back over there, you speed it up, you bring it down, you throw in some other different elements, and it's much more organized. It still has the power. It still has the thrash.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I like to kind of describe us, it's when you say metal, like some people who don't like metal, like, I don't want to give it a chance. If you say rock, I think the term sci-fi rock has gotten thrown around with us, and I don't know, all of us are, I would say, sci-fi and horror fans, and I think that comes out in the music, because some of the progression, like chord progressions, this is showing my lack of guitar playing knowledge, but like some of the things that Brian and Pete will come up with musically, it's like it reminds me almost of like stuff that you would hear for like a sci-fi movie or a horror movie. Like it could be like a soundtrack to it.
Oh, listen, Frank Zappa would love you guys, because you guys are breaking some of, I guess, what would be referred to as the old standards and rules. And, thrash, punk, even, metal to certain degrees really took those and said, fuck it, we're breaking them. We're not going to follow the rules. We're going to go here. But when you were saying that, I was thinking in my mind, especially with the experimentation aspect that you guys do, they said a very similar thing about Pink Floyd back in the day when they were doing all that really heavy psychedelic kind of, just a lot of effects and odd notes and, shifting tempos and dynamics. So this is, again, a natural progression, taking the technology, taking the elements not only of style, but for you guys also the influences. You made a mention of the sci-fi aspects, and soundtrack music can be just as equally fucking powerful.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Are there any particular ones that stood out for you as far as science fiction goes?
One of I think everybody in the band are huge fans of the movie Alien, and I really like the old classic The Day the Earth Stood Still, just because it's, I don't know, it was, I think it was way ahead of its time, like the just the way things looked, and I guess it the Twilight Zone, all the old Twilight Zone things, just some of the themes, and I love all the old time sci-fi radio shows, like what is it, not Mystery Science Theater, I can't even remember the name of it.
But I know where you're going. There was a dynamic back in the day. You didn't have all these visual effects, so you had to create atmosphere using the tools that were available. In old school radio, it was all about sound. So you had to create things that were eerie. You had to create things that would shift your emotional dynamic. You would create fear or excitement or confusion. You know what I mean? So in some ways it was simpler, but it was also purer, I think, in a way too, because it really reflected it versus just, you know, going for a loud noise. You know, because anybody can do that. You know, anybody can walk up there, smash a couple fucking cymbals together and call it performance art. And it's just like, well, okay, but, you know, there's nothing else really behind it. You also mentioned the fact that, you know, again, with what you do and stuff, what would you say as a singer was your biggest influence that, you know, made you do what you do now?
Probably, I don't know, like growing up, I always, I mean, how could you not like Kiss, the Misfits, Danzig, and I always love like the punk thing, and just, I don't know, just kind of almost, you know, the whole in your face kind of thing. I love Guar, like I was saying before, my old band Hungerjack, I used to dress like a nun with a pro wrestling mask on, and it was kind of like just coming up in almost like a performance art thing, and I just even like stuff like Jim Morrison, just kind of going out there and doing your own thing. And
you took a lot of different elements and wrapped and made into, because one of the things I noticed in looking at some of the stuff that you guys have out there from your performances, you are incredibly energetic in your dynamic. Like, you're not just coming up there and like, you know, here I am. You are full on in the fucking moment.
Oh, which, thank you.
You know, especially, you know, for the type of stuff that you sing, to be able to bring that dynamic night after night. And you mentioned you don't do a lot of shows. I imagine part of it is that you can't put that type of performance in with all that energy repetitively. I mean, that's the type of thing that would fucking kill somebody.
you definitely you feel it when you're done. But that, in a way, it kind of comes naturally, you know, over the years. Like I said, I played in the other band, which was very like theatrical, but I was a pro wrestler for for like 10 years, and I've done some minor like plays in the area. I got to play in a Frankenstein play, so I kind of feel I like to be up in front of people and do that, and it's kind of like it's nerve-wracking, but it's also relaxing at the same time, because when you're up there, you're just you're not thinking about, oh, I got to pay this bill, I got to do this, you're there in your thing, and that's it.
Well, I mean, that kind of energy is contagious. When you can get a crowd into what's going on, and everybody starts now, you know, channeling into that, it's incredibly powerful, you know. And again, I know it from being on stage and performing. You know, a friend of mine, we did a show a couple days ago, and he discussed, you know, the dynamic that, you know, nobody goes out there who doesn't enjoy it. You know what I mean? You wouldn't get up on stage,
right,
if there wasn't an element that, you know, that you enjoyed. And part of that enjoyment is the interaction with the crowd. Or again, you know, same analogy, you know, even the Beatles famously, you know, they hit a point and they were just like, you know what, we don't want to fucking tour anymore. We just want to hide in a studio and just make albums.
Yeah.
So the dynamic between recording and performing, it really is night and day in many ways, because you have to put out that dynamic of energy. You have to deal with all the little nuances. Okay, you know, how are the acoustics going to be in this particular place, especially with the kind of music that you guys play. I imagine it's very easy for it to get lost in the mix. So you guys have to be dialed in versus, you know, a guy's just going to go up there with his fucking acoustic guitar and, you know, sing some Bob Dylan.
Right. And over, I don't know, I can't remember exactly when we started using them, but we use for some performances. We use them at rehearsals, but some performances that we can accommodate it, we use in-ear monitors, and they've made such a difference because some places that you play, like
you can't hear yourself on fucking stage, man. I know.
it has made like a huge difference. And if you're hearing yourself, then you don't have to worry about like, I got to stand right next to the monitor. Otherwise I'm not, I can go out and do stuff like, over the summer, one of, I'm going to say probably our best show, or one of our best shows. We played, in Vermont, right outside of Burlington, at this place called the Monkey House. And we were the last band out of, I think 4 bands. And I didn't think anyone was going to stick around, but the place was packed. And these guys in the crowd had never heard us. And we just went up there, and it was amazing. We had people just, they stuck around for the whole show. They were dancing. I was out in the crowd. It was so much fun, and like the energy that the people in the crowd were showing, it like it went right back to us. And we played with like so much energy that night, and like it was fun, and that's what makes it, it's all worth it.
Yeah, no, listen, I feel you there. So listen, before we're gonna cut to your new track, I want you to set this up, tell everybody a little bit about it. This is Blood Atonement, and you guys just released this like 2 or 3 days ago, right?
Yep. That's going to be on our new EP that will be coming out in the future. I don't know exactly when, but I can guarantee that it's in the works. Blood Atonement, it was a way a lot of the songs work is Brian or Pete will have a title, and then I'll kind of play around with what I think my interpretation of it is. And this was one of those, I took that as not an anti-religion song, but it's like, I believe it's a term where it's kind of like an eye for an eye. People are overpaying for the sins of man and God's eyes. So this is kind of like,
that's an interesting thing, right? Because I didn't get an anti-religious thing. What I kind of got, it kind of felt, and I used the earlier analogy with how I saw what Brian was posting. It almost really kind of reflects the hypocrisy element of it. The whole blood
definitely.
Right. So there's a narrative here that's not saying, hey, we're not saying this is bad, but we're saying to some degrees how it's being played out there. It's very similar to the analogy, live by the sword, die by the sword.
Exactly. That's right on the head. Boom. It's like, I'm not saying how you worship your whatever is a bad thing, and everyone can have their own self-peace however they want to do it. But this is kind of how it looks.
Right. How it fucking translates to the rest of us. And that's a great thing, because not everybody has the ability like you guys do to have a voice, to put it out there and say, hey, no, this is how we see it. This is how we feel about it. And that's the beautiful thing about music, is that you don't even always necessarily have to understand the words to get a vibe, to get an energy, to get, something out of it that's tangible. And just like you described, when you perform, when you do a live show, you know what I mean? Nobody there really knew who you guys were.
Exactly.
But they got into it. Now, there's a reason for that, because you and I both know you can't bullshit your way through that. There's no amount of skill. There's no amount of fluff that can bullshit your way through that. It either is there or it's not. Now, granted, there's always circumstances. You've probably done shows where you had to look at the sound system and be like, who the fuck came up with that idea?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or just, the little nuances of things that you can't control. But it really is dependent upon the people on the stage. Your creating the energy and then channeling it with everybody else, obviously, that's in the audience. So I really dig this track. So we're going to play this track, and then we'll be back with some more. So enjoy a little bit of Blood Atonement. So yeah, that was the new track, Blood Atonement. And as Matt mentioned, you're not quite sure exactly, but we're gonna see the album released within probably by the new year, right? Would you say that's a safe bet?
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, and like I was telling you before, like the concepts of the songs. Sometimes the guys will have like a title, and I will kind of take it and run with the title. Like with our song Mad Space Between Stars, that was something that they had music for a while. And when we first started working with it, it didn't look like it was going to be the easiest thing to come up with lyrics for. And then I ended up kind of taking the words and kind of twisting them around with like the idea of like, say, like Einstein or Carl Sagan or Isaac Asimov. They kind of went crazy, as in mad, because they have been looking at outer space and trying to come up with all these theories and figure out this and how far away that is and how do they get to the Milky Way.
I mean, the old analogy, you look into the abyss and sometimes it looks fucking back at you. So yeah.
So that was my concept of like, that's what it's about. They're so smart that, that they went kind of kooky thing, thinking about, outer space and that. So that was a play on it. And then we ended up using Carl Sagan, a little clip from him at the end of it. And, somewhere down the road, if we ever, won the lottery, it'd be cool to have the 3D hologram, and during that part have, Carl Sagan come out on stage and say the thing. But,
that's a great visual, dynamic, because it crosses some of the elements that you wouldn't necessarily say would connect. You know what I mean? That's what forces people, I think, at least, to think outside the box. Now, I'm noticing, because you and I had, like I said, mentioned in the beginning of the show, a little bit of confusion about how the interview was going to go, and the technology. And it looks like Brian is hanging, because I just got a missed call from him. So I think he's trying to call in. Can you?
I think he is.
All right. So you know what? This is what we're going to do. If you're cool with it, because I'd like to give him an opportunity to jump on.
Yep.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a track. We're going to dump out. I'm going to get him on the line, let him come back on for a few, talk about things. There's no time limit on the show, so we can run this fucking, as long as we want. But,
all right.
in the spirit, and to humbly be honest with you, as a guitar player, I really want to pick his brain.
Oh, yeah.
I want to fucking get in there and be like, what you got going over there, man?
Yeah, pick his brain, and he will be able to explain things much clearer and better than I would, because I don't know everything about that. I sit and wonder.
Everything. But no, listen, I do appreciate you taking out the time. You know what I mean? It is a collaborative effort. That's why we all do these things. And again, you're going to be up there October. You guys are playing the 28th. You're playing Saturday, right?
we are the opening band. We're going on at 11:15 in the morning, so everyone wake up early and
I'll be there. I'll be there to see you and meet you personally, and
awesome.
I will at least be fucking up there with you, man. So, awesome. But everybody else should get the fuck up there, okay? This is not a show you're going to want to miss. All right, so
awesome.
Yes, you know what? I'm gonna jump to another one of the bands that are going to be performing Saturday. I'm going to play an Annika track. One of theirs called Erase. And I think they're going on at 1:30 Saturday. It's going to be a lot of really cool shit there. So I'm going to do that, jump out, see if we can get Brian on the phone, and then we'll be back. So yeah, that was Annika's Erase. They also will be performing October 28th at the Rockin' Oddities Con in Saratoga Springs. Now I got Brian Mantium on the line jumping in with us. He's going to tell us a little bit about this fucking guitar magic. And this group is Psychomanteum, Connie. Papa John, everybody's like, who is this? This is Psychomanteum. This is one of the bands they're going to be playing up at Saratoga Springs for the Rockin' Oddities Con. They are one of several bands, but they have a unique style. And, you know, Matt was talking about how, you know, he had some of that punk influence and obviously the early thrash. But he also, you know, ironically, you know, one of the other bands that he mentioned as a direct influence was Kiss, which I thought was actually pretty cool because you wouldn't really make a correlation with Kiss with what you guys do. Like I heard elements of Suicidal Tendencies in there. You know, I heard obvious thrash elements, but Kiss was not one of the ones that jumped into my head, at least. Tell me about your influences as a guitar player.
Well, you know, I would also add, Matt's a big Genesis fan, like early 70s Genesis. So there's a prog element to what he likes too. And that's a bit of an overlap, I think, with the rest of us. We all have a little bit of that. Growing up for me, though, I think a lot of it started with like Living Colour, Steve Vai. I was really into the sort of shredder guitar thing, but more on the creative side, sort of the artistic side of things, as opposed to Yngwie, who I obviously respect as a musician. Artistically, maybe lacking a bit there, you know, comparatively. And then from there, you know, like a lot of people, I started getting into some of the more alternative elements of things for a while. So I liked Soundgarden. I think Bad Motorfinger was my introduction to that.
Oh, great fucking stuff there. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, I went back and listened to Louder Than Love and Ultra Mega OK and some of that stuff, too. And then, you know, it was kind of like an anti-musicianship push in the 90s to some degree. Like, you know, really technical guitar solos were frowned upon. So I got into a little bit more simplistic stuff. But then later in the 90s, coming out of metalcore, I sort of got into, again, more complicated progressive metal. You know, some of your Dream Theater stuff, Opeth, you know, and what they've become.
I was just going to say, I thought I heard a little Portnoy in there. You know what I mean? I think I think Mike would approve.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I'm like a fraction of the guitar player he is, but
well, listen, we all go through that. I don't think, and you know, I've had interactions with some of these guys over the year with some of the charity stuff that we do, and the one common element that I've seen with a lot of them, not all of them, because you and I both know, and I'll just fucking say it because I can, you know, the Yngwies and stuff, they get consumed by their own fucking egos. You know what I mean? And that is the bane of every fucking guitar player, is when you forget why you're doing it, if you forget where you come from, because an A is an A and an A diminished seventh is still a fucking A diminished seventh, regardless if Al does it or Hendrix does it or any number of analogies. It's about how you frame the rest of it. And some of it requires having a humble take on it. But, you know, there's a case to be made, you know, to the technical. Like I heard little influences, and I was saying this, Matt, like I heard a little bit of Floyd in the one track, The Mad Space Between, you know, Stars. You know what I mean? Like I hear that progressive rock dynamic, you know, not that it's, you know, specifically Floyd, but the influence, if you know what I'm saying, to shift and put different things into play. I jokingly said to Matt, I said, listen, I think Frank Zappa would absolutely approve of you guys because there's a lot of different stuff going on. And especially for you, you're using an 8-string guitar and you're creating not only the guitar elements, but you're filling in the back end of where the bass would normally go.
Yeah, and you mentioned you wanted to get into some of the technical aspects of how I accomplish that. The 8-string guitar element is not the main way I do it. It's actually, that's kind of adds a tonal element But the Axe Effects has a pitch follower ability. So you can actually program it for certain parts of songs to have it play one octave below what you're playing and going through a bass amp and simulated cabinet.
So you're actually splitting some of your signal and sending it, in different chains to create the layers that you need and want.
Yeah, and I'm not the first to do this. I mean, Local H was a two-piece that did that in the 90s, where they had like an octave pedal. But the Axe Effects is so powerful that you can have it where once you go up to a lead, it actually goes down another octave and fills out the space.
See, I use a little bit of the octave stuff, back in the day, but it really is one of those nuanced elements that, you have to really go into to truly appreciate and understand. And I'm going to be really honest with you, listening to the tracks without knowing that, I would have never made the correlation. I like the sound because it's a unique sound, but I would not have put that piece together, would not have connected those two dots.
Well,
if it wasn't for, these conversations, to be honest.
To be fair, though, the tracks themselves, I actually play bass, a real bass on.
Well, then that would explain it then.
Yeah.
But listen, you guys sound really good live. I looked at a little bit of stuff that you guys put out there. You know what I mean? And again, I wasn't looking at it as a dynamic of, you should have 4 players versus 5 players. I'm just, again, as a guitar player, I'm listening to it. I want to hear how it sounds. And you guys sound fucking good playing live. And
Thanks.
That's, again, not an easy thing to translate. Anybody can go in, you can do 1,000 takes on a track until you get it to the point that you almost want it, and then you give it to an engineer, and, he can rip it up and, stitch it back together and layer this and blah, blah, blah. And you can make, something sound really good. But going on stage and doing it, you can't bullshit your way through that. There's just, you don't have the luxury of like a George Martin hiding in the shadows that's gonna just, redo all that stuff. So you found a way literally to use the technological elements to give yourself that extra support in your sound, which is wild, man. I give you credit where credit's due.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, a lot of people have effects units, but they don't do the deep dive to figure out how to do this stuff. But my background's in programming, so comparatively, it's like, oh no, you just go in and you search through the parameters and you find, a way to accomplish what you're trying to do. So I'm not really afraid to get into that too much, which has definitely helped.
But you've also taken it and put it into now a tool that suits what you want to create, because again, you guys are creating your own music, which again is incredibly challenging these days, considering, most of the places out there, they want cover bands, you know what I mean? So the pay to play model has just become an absolute fucking nightmare for bands, especially bands that are outside, the quote unquote, standards. You and I and Matt was talking a little bit about it. Metal gets labeled, rock gets labeled, thrash, punk. These are just all labels that people have kind of passed around, to different degrees. And you guys have a couple of different elements that are wrapped into it to give a unique and original sound to it.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to, kind of reflect our tastes, which are pretty much all over the map. And, metal, the metal scene can get very cliquey as well, even among genres. And that's not really conducive to good music, in my opinion, because then all the bands are kind of pressured to sound a similar way. And for me, metals run the gamut from, Cannibal Corpse to Judas Priest to even like Van Halen, David Lee Roth era. That's just about metal to me, really.
But it's also, it's personal taste to certain degrees. I was listening to, again, Dead Kennedys. I was listening to, early, Iron Maiden with Paul Di'Anno.
Yeah.
But I wasn't listening to Kiss. You know what I mean?
Right.
When I was a kid, my mother was listening to The Doors, Led Zeppelin, Cream. So my earliest influences, especially on guitar, was, the old, blues rock, and then it became Sabbath and Tony Iommi, and then it became Ritchie Blackmore and Rainbow. Then Randy Rhoads show up, and, I was just like, fuck, I got to learn classical now.
Yeah.
So we go through the stages, especially as we're growing up as guitar players. Do you mind me asking, how old were you when you first started playing?
I was 17.
Okay. So you started a little bit later. What made you want to pick it up? Who was the guy that you saw or you heard that you said, I got to play guitar?
Well, so I picked it up, but didn't take lessons, and I put it down very briefly when I was 14. And the reason why was because I didn't get good enough, quick enough. And I think a phenomenon that happened in the 90s, because, at the time I was listening to, Megadeth, Metallica, Steve Vai, and it's just like, well, that just seems like so far afield that there's no way I'm never going to be able to do that.
That's the deep end of the pool, man.
Exactly. And I was starting there, Eric Johnson, like that's what I was listening to at the time. And it was just like, nah, I can't do this. And then, Nirvana and Mother Love Bone and Soundgarden and some of the stuff that was a little, I should take Soundgarden out of that actually. Some of the stuff was easier to play. So I found, I tried to learn a Nirvana song, and it was like, oh, that's really not that hard. And then I think the pivotal point was when my friend had a guitar, and I went over to his house, and he was trying to learn the main riff for Back in Black by AC/DC. And he'd been trying to listen to learn this for 2 months or so. And I picked up the guitar and I figured it out in 5 minutes. I did the hammer on pull off thing, And I was like, oh yeah, this is possible. I think maybe I can do this. And then he quit guitar and played drums like that week. He was so pissed.
Well, I mean, again, anybody can train themselves to be a technical player, but some people have a natural affinity to it. Like I learned by watching the old timers. My mother used to drag me around, and I would see these guys playing, and as a young kid, I would just mimic them. And then I really started to explore it. But to be blunt, part of that is because I was given that type of environmental exposure. You know what I mean? Certain things are reflective of where we are in any particular time. And especially as kids, we don't always get a fucking option in how that plays out. And, time and place, they do create a subtlety of influence, again, because of the stuff that my mother listened to, the first time. And for me, it was Jimi Hendrix. When I saw the performance from Woodstock for the first time, seeing it at a drive-in theater, this big fucking thing, with summer, all these bikers and fucking hippies, getting stoned and drunk. And then all of a sudden it's just Hendrix blaring across the whole thing. And I remember as a kid, I was so blown away by it that I was just like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't want to play acoustic guitar anymore. I wanted an electric guitar. I took my mother's 8-track deck, one of the old 8-track power amp decks, and I fucking wired it up so that way I could plug an electric guitar into it through the 1/4-inch jack. And I just became a fucking madman with it and just started, experimenting with anything that I can get my hands on, and eventually led into the metal. You know what I mean? The early days of L'Amour's, the Old British Metal Militia, Metallica, Raven, Merciful Fate, a lot of the old school, metal bands. But, some of it was also, the punk influence too. Like I loved, the Dead Kennedys, Sex Pistols, I thought were, just completely, out of their minds. And it was really cool to see, a band that wasn't afraid to just be, nasty about it. Like, you know what I mean? You remember some of those early, elements of, how Sid would be, granted some of it you can make a case that he was just too fucked up to know the difference.
Well, they unplugged him half the time.
Well, well, we won't talk about that. But it was an energy thing. It reflected some of the, let's be honest, it reflected some of the anger and the disconnect the resentments, the just, we're tired of this same old bullshit narrative. Yeah. My mother says because, she was one of those old school hippies that this was bound to happen. It happens with every generation. One of the things, and I made a mention to this, Matt, and before I forget, I wanted to bring this up because one of the first things I saw when we became friends on Facebook was the post that you made about the conspiracy stuff. And, you have these little magical moments in time where, certain things define things. So the first thing I saw was you kind of making this really deep, just kind of like, all right, here it is, fucking statement. And I was like, oh, this is so refreshing. Somebody gets it. You know what I mean? It was just the little things. And this reflects in music. I hear that in how you guys are writing your songs.
Yeah. I mean, to go to the conspiracy theory thing, and I have many friends that I respect that go off the deep end on this a little bit. It kind of reminds me of when you get a bowl of popcorn and curl up with a nice horror movie, and it's like a taste of danger, but in your mind you really know that you're all cozy and not in danger at all. You're safe, and that's kind of the way that the conspiracy stuff is. I think deep down most people realize that that's a bunch of bullshit. And I'm not saying that there aren't conspiracies that are real. It's just, again, if you believe it, why are you posting on a publicly traded company's service?
Or have something a little bit more tangible than a fucking Facebook meme to come at it with. You know what I mean? Because some of it is ridiculous. We came up in an element where we could agree to disagree, but there were certain things that were, we'll call them, established facts. Like I always find it hysterical that somehow we're going back to and having the whole flat earth debate thing again. Like it's just,
God.
Yeah, you see where I'm going. And it's just certain things that are just so fucking off the deep end. You can't help but wonder, is this purposely a weaponized element, or is this just, have we really begun to regress into deeper levels of fucking stupid?
Well, I mean,
it's hard to really separate it.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to the level of like the flat earth thing, then it's just like, well, nothing is real and it's nihilism at that point. And that's where you lose me. It's like, okay, I got to get off the train here,
Well, yeah, I mean, some of it is, the proverbial dancing in the mouth of madness, or, you can only look so long into that without it somehow reflecting back on you. And it isn't, always a clear-cut thing because, let's be honest, people have been conditioned not to trust what the fuck is going on around them.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it breeds it in some ways.
It does. And, I have a reticence to believe conspiracy theories, but I will say Epstein probably didn't kill himself. I'll give you that one.
Oh, we had to go there, right? Well, listen,
yeah,
I mean, again,
I'm a little bit on board with.
But when we have these types of conversations, it's not, again, always easy to separate the satire from the horror, because, I mean, I come from the George Carlin School of Language. I believe that we should be able to talk openly. We need to have a little bit more raw dynamics because a lot of it is bullshit. You look at like the political aspect and stuff, it's like none of them give a fuck about us. This has been a constant type of thing, you know what I mean, that's been going on for generations. Of course it's going to end up into these crazy moments of, there's satanic pedophiles hanging out in a pizza parlor, you know what I mean? Or, anyone, and it goes both ways because you have so much extremism. I think culturally we've become conditioned. We're almost fucking numb to it. And you use the horror analogy. We've seen so many goddamn movies that, short of the zombies crawling up your ass, I'm not sure, that people are gonna, they're gonna find the common ground anytime soon, at least. I pray for that. Yeah. I think that that's the solution, to find something that's so completely outside of the box that you can't get away from it. And what better analogy, or to use like Matt made a reference that you guys are all big horror fans, and he used Ridley Scott's Alien. Imagine if one of those fucking things just showed up and just started wrecking havoc. Everybody would have to drop all the other stupid shit. It wouldn't matter who's sucking whose dick or any of that other stuff. It'd be like, holy shit, we've got an apex predator that's going to fuck us up. Yeah. We got to get our heads out of our ass.
But inevitably, there would be one faction that was like, well, they're not really that bad.
Yeah, well, if the Wayland Corporation shows up, you already know we're fucked. Because
yeah, exactly.
When you start fucking with the natural order, but we've seen this reflected within our cultures and within our literature for generations. It's the proverbial Frankenstein syndrome. We tend to create the fucking monsters.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's not. I think it's more obvious how bad things are. It's not like we haven't been here before in some ways, or that it hasn't been worse. I mean, if you look back to the 1800s, members of Congress were having duels because they were getting into arguments and killing each other.
Or the analogy of the fucking Black Death. You know what I mean? It's not like disease has not shown up before, and nature has taken shots at us. That is the natural process to many degrees. I don't know, like you and I both know, somehow that translated into a mass fucking run on toilet paper. You know what I mean? Which, when you think about fucking priorities, and that was the thing for me that really said, okay, we're off the fucking reservation, man. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We've lost all framework of any type of common sense approach. And I got my sister Gia out in the audience. She knows that she's been friends with Shai and I for a long time, and she has a very similar mentality about the stupidity sometimes that we're all forced to survive in. Because most of the time, it's not even of our own intent. We're dealing with collateral damage elements. Somebody goes off sideways. Now everybody else around them has to either clean up the mess or deal with whatever repercussive elements there are. Matt was mentioning, and I think your new track reflects a little bit of it, because he made it a point, to be like, this is not an anti-church song, but it does call out, Blood Atonement does call out some of the hypocrisy, some of the double standard, if you will. Am I wrong on that? Was that part of, the thought process when you guys wrote that track?
It's part of it, but it's actually part of a sort of an arcing narrative of a story of multiple songs. I don't know if you've ever seen, is it called Raised by Wolves, I think, on HBO?
Oh, absolutely. That's another Ridley Scott. Dude, if you're talking Ridley Scott to me, we could have 5 podcasts about fucking Ridley Scott.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. But the concept to me, just having like basically 2 factions of, people that are religious versus atheist, and people that are sort of caught in between, and then putting it in a sci-fi theme where you're putting your faith in God, and that's what's going to allow you to transcend into the next dimension or wherever we go. And then you've got the, quote unquote realists of the atheists, where they're like, no, we need science to save us. That's kind of the idea.
But both are equally possible to corrupt, because we saw that the manipulation of the faith element into releasing, whatever monstrosity you want to call it, but you could also see the hypocrisy of it about how the other inhabitants, the other species were, basically, let's be honest, they were driven underneath, they were demonized, and the whole thing is ass backwards. When you look at it outside of just basic characters and, the action and the monsters and stuff, Ridley Scott has always taken a very deep humanistic approach to it, because these things reflect us. The Alien movies, especially the first 2, really reflected, again, the choices sometimes that we're forced into. They got sent on a death mission for all intents and purposes because they wanted something they could, the company wanted something they could fucking weaponize. And that became even more apparent in the sequel. And granted, even though it wasn't Ridley Scott's original concept, it did follow his narrative. It's like Stanley Kubrick. You look at how he told his stories. You look at something like The Shining, you know what I mean, versus...
That's my favorite movie, yeah.
Yeah, you see where I'm going. These things reflect the human conditions, and in many ways, you know, music imitates art, art imitates life. There's a common thread that goes through it. Like, I hear aspects, obviously, of your guys' experience and your perspectives within how you were writing your songs, which is, in my opinion, the best way to make music. Otherwise, it isn't authentic. You know, it isn't real then.
Yeah, it has to have a piece of you in it. You know, even if you're doing something that's, in our case, like sort of theatrical or, you know, a narrative, it has to sort of start with a piece of you in there. And, you know, Blood Atonement, the idea there was that there's a character that's an atheist, but is in a family of religious people, sort of like high in society and influence. And they're conflicted, and they have a family, and they're trying to save them, and they think science is the way to save them rather than just belief. So, you know, what that is effectively showing, you know, I think all of us can probably identify with this, that, you know, our parents or family have some sort of like bloodline fault or thing about them that you don't want to be. And you can see it happening anyway, and you feel like you're powerless.
Well, in some circles, it's referred to as the generational curse, but it is a conditioning element that is literally passed down. You know, children aren't born racist. They're not born these particular ways. They reflect learned behavior, aka the shit that they're exposed to tends to be the things that shape them and develop into whatever it becomes. And sometimes that's a giant fucking snake that's flying in the sky.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So, so that's the piece of the human part of that concept that we've sort of integrated into the story.
Very, very cool. Listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. I want you to kind of, I have another one, Strange Voltage, I believe it is, that I had in some of the stuff that was sent to me. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that one, and then we'll cut on that, you know, and, you know, tell us whatever else you guys got going on. You know, obviously you're going to be up there October 28th for the Rockin' Oddities Con in Saratoga Springs. Matt said that you guys are going to be the ones opening the show. I'm going to be there first thing that morning, so I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. But, you know, tell us about Strange Voltage and, you know, whatever else is coming down the pike for you.
Sure. Well, Strange Voltage is a song that it's actually pretty simple in concept. It's basically just talking about all the different things that have happened in different times in history, and it's told through the idea of time travel through the music, and basically just saying, like, are things really that different other than the technology? I mean, people are pretty much the same as they were back in the Middle Ages, if you look at it in terms of, you know, at our core. So that's basically what that's saying. And as far as things coming up, Rockin' Oddities Con, obviously, we're really looking forward to that. We don't have any other shows booked at this point. I think we're done for the year because we're going to be focusing on the EP, and we're kind of picking our shots. But we're going to do definitely more shows next year and ramp up on that. And then I think probably another EP later next year. We're trying to do an EP a year if we can.
Nice.
And I think the next one's going to be heavier than the one we're releasing now.
Ooh, that could be really interesting. Well, listen, as I said to Matt, I definitely want to have you guys come back out when you release that. We'll talk a little bit more, you know, obviously about the influences, you know, behind the tracks. We'll talk about whatever fuckery is going on there, whatever the new flavor conspiracy is, because I think those are some good conversations to have too. Because, you know, again, these are the things that influence your music. You know, it's a part of it, and you can't really always, obviously, you know, in a 3.5 minute song, you can't get into all of it. So you can take a snapshot, you can take a piece of it and say, here, smell this, you know, taste this. But having the deeper conversations, and again, just as one guitar player to another, I like that. I like getting, you know, behind the scenes, you know what I mean? Getting into the deeper elements of, you know, where it comes from, what's underneath it, because everybody always has their own interpretation. You know, they'll listen to it and they'll be like, well, you know, he's talking about the blood of the lamb. Well, that's because blood was mentioned. You know what I mean? So everybody's going to draw their own conclusions. But you wrote the fucking thing. So, you know what I mean? Ultimately, it's going to the source. You know, like I would have loved to have been able to have the conversation with Michelangelo, because I think a lot of his stuff probably got taken out of context. Some of it was obviously, you know, the contract work. You know, the church is like, here's some money, you know, we want you to do this, fucking that, and the other thing. But there was so much other stuff that he did that kind of got buried. You know what I'm saying? And that was
passion projects.
Right. That was really outside what would be considered for the time period, you know what I mean, as acceptable. But that's just, you know, one of many of my interview wish lists. I have to use the witches to talk with the dead stuff. It's uncomfortable, man. They tend to be kind of clingy with the, you know, they don't want to be dead type of analogy. But this is the beautiful thing, and you made a great point of it. We're only limited by our understanding. You know, the human condition is still the same. It's the technology that gives us these extra tools, you know, to expand what we think we know, what we think we believe, and challenging that, I think, is the purest definition of the human element, because there's always something more out there. You know, if history has proven us anything, is that everything fucking changes. But the human element hasn't. You know, people are still spiteful, they're greedy, they're lustful, you know, but they can be beautiful and inspiring and loving. So that hasn't changed. Now we just, you know, now we can, I have the running joke, now we can broadcast, you know, Paris Hilton's vagina across the world so everybody can get a nice, deep, close look at whatever it is that you're really not missing.
Right.
But that's one of the beautiful things about the podcast and not having any corporate sponsors, is I can just basically go there and just be like, yeah, you know, we're going to call that out for what it is. You know, somebody.
So you're not sponsored by Hilton Hotels then?
No.
Okay.
No. I like, again, I meant it when I said I come from the George Carlin school of language. I will poke the things that I at least believe that need to be poked. I tried to do it, you know, again, not to be an asshole, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to go out there and say the things that I'm really thinking in that element, because, well, listen, you know, there's no need to be hurtful. But, you know, if you were to ask my honest opinion and to use that analogy, I think she's a shitty fucking representative for women in general. I think this is not the thing that we want to promote. The same thing, I'll say the same thing about the fucking Kim Kardashians and the rest of them. I don't begrudge sexuality. I have more respect for the girls on OnlyFans or at the local club on the pole, because they at least have the courage to be fucking honest about it. You see where I'm going? You know what I mean? They're not pretending it's anything else. And more times than not, they're just doing it for pure survival. So you got to look at context. You got to look at the motivation. But, you know, when you got somebody like Gwyneth Paltrow who's out there selling vagina goop, quite literally, you know it's a bullshit. You know, it's bullshit, man. You might as well take a shit in the jar and sell it to them, because that's really what it is. You're selling people bullshit, and then you're using these underlying narratives of, you know, well, this will make you part of the cool crowd.
Yeah.
You know, but that's, again, part of the human conditioning. We are taught that, you know, you have to be a particular way, you have to look a particular way, you have to talk a particular way. Anything outside the box is not acceptable. Back in the day, they called it heresy. Now I think we're using the woke. Is that what it is? I can't always keep track of how language is getting used these days. Don't get me wrong. Certain things need to be called out. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody will disagree that, you know, anybody should be subjugated to shit that they don't want. But in the same analogy, we can't separate satire and comedy from, you know, pure rhetoric and just, you know, some really vile shit that, you know, you'll see coming from different angles. And it's usually, again, in some weaponized form. It's some other narrative underneath. Kind of like how you were talking about, you know, the conspiracy theory stuff. You know, we're focused on so much insanity, we're missing the actual shit that's happening in real time.
Yeah, and it's by design. You know, the more distracted we are, the more nefarious stuff that can happen. And it doesn't have to be some grand conspiracy theory. It can be something as simple as the corporate tax structure. Like it's out there. It's public. Go to the IRS,
Or like creating, putting, dairy products into the food pyramid when we've known for generations that cow milk is actually absolutely destructive and harmful to humans.
Yeah,
but it's a great industry. People are making a whole lot of fucking money on it. But we just, we forgot to mention that, it's going to destroy your body from the inside out. And then we're going to bitch and complain about healthcare, and be like, well, by the way, we're going to put a price on your survival. So, you know what I mean? If you don't kill yourself working for the benefits, you will surely die trying to deal with the insurance companies to get anything done. And it is, it is, some of it is very subtle. It is that, the Chinese water drop analogy, just drop by drop, and you wear away, people's desire to some degrees, but also you take away a common framework. So now when you don't have any real clear line, who do you trust? You know what I mean? When we were coming up, you know what I mean? You would look at the news as being, okay, well, that's the news. You know what I mean? It wasn't some, where am I getting my news from? Is there some other bullshit spin on it? Is it somebody's, interpretation versus reality? And it makes it difficult. Let me ask you, for you, where do you see the real shift happen, at least in your personal experiences?
The shift in terms of what exactly?
Well, just, the weaponized dynamic, the shit show that we find ourselves in now. Or do you think that was just a natural progression?
Well, I think it was an artificial, it was artificial brought on upon by the cable news starting in like CNN 1980. And I think it's been a gradual downward spiral from there. When you have 24-hour news and they have to fill that much time, you're going to find that they have to have more advertising. They have to have more editorial to fill time. And then,
it becomes less about journalism and it becomes more, again, about opinion.
Yeah. And, there's a resistance on the print side. I used to actually work for the newspaper National Network in their advertising. So I got to see them grappling with online and clicks and unique visitors and all that stuff that, people that have YouTube channels or websites.
Oh, brother, you're preaching to the choir. I work for a nonprofit. Well, I don't work. I volunteer at a nonprofit FM radio station.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah.
The struggle is absolutely fucking real. No, that's a great point.
Yeah. So the internet has made that worse. I still find, and I'm lucky in my job that I get to some inside information on finance stuff. So I get the real deal. Money makes the world go round. So I find the truth through that, those means.
Well, it's pretty funny you said that, because my mother she likes to lurk in the shadows. And when she hears a particular trigger word in the conversation, she'll usually jump in. And she made a statement in the chat literally right before you said that. When money became more important than when money became more important than journalism, it all went downhill.
That's right. Yeah. And so if you want to hear the truth about what's going to happen or what people actually think is going to happen that know what the deal is, talk to like a mutual fund manager or, a hedge fund manager, because they don't care about politics. They don't care what color tie you're wearing when you run for office.
It's all about the fucking money.
What's going to make me money.
Right.
Yep. That's it.
That's an interesting perspective, because that very dynamic eliminates, I guess, to some degrees, that emotional variable. I also see it part of the systemic problem, because when you reduce, it's like actuaries. You use the example that Fight Club kind of painted. When people's lives are equated now into a mathematical formula of profit versus loss, you have to really scratch your head and say, how the fuck did we end up here?
Right. Yeah, and I'm not saying that's the way it should work. I'm just saying that's the way it works.
No, sometimes, listen, sometimes the only way to be able to deal with the thing is you have to understand it for what it is. And just because it's uncomfortable or ugly doesn't make it any less fucking real. You know, that's like saying to a serial killer, you know what I mean? I don't like the way you look. They're not going to give a shit as they're cutting your throat and eating your liver. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's the same thing with an alligator. An alligator doesn't give a shit about morality or anything like that. It has a one-dimensional dynamic food. And if you happen to be in the zone, you know what I mean? You are now, for all intents and purposes, collateral damage. You know, there is no moral context anymore.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a real problem.
Interesting. We're going to have some good conversations when you guys release the album, because I definitely want to, you know, bring some more of your music out there. But
awesome,
we share some insights, and I believe these are really important conversations to have in the framework, because, you know, music reflects our lives. You know, it's just another way of storytelling. You know what I mean? With a really cool fucking soundtrack to it.
Nice. Yep.
Beautiful. All right. So listen, I'm going to clip out Strange Voltage. Thank you again. And listen, October, you know what? Let me throw this up here for those folks who are, again, at home. There we go. Saratoga Springs, okay, October 28th, 29th. It's going to be the Rockin' Oddities Con. There is a little scan thing there if you want to scan for it. But you can also go to rockodditiescon.com. You can check them out on social media, all that groovy stuff. And you could also go through, I've seen you guys have been sharing it. I believe that there's actually a special barcode that you guys have, if I'm not mistaken, for people who want to go to the show. Are you guys, do you guys have one of those that you put out there?
I think it's the Tradition put it out, and I think everybody seems to be using it. It's a QR code.
Okay.
If they scan on there, they can go in there. I believe they get a discount by doing that.
Nice. All right. Well, listen, save yourself a couple bucks, and you can be found obviously on Facebook and social media. You guys also have, you guys are going through, what are you guys going through when you are releasing the track? Bandcamp?
Bandcamp for the new track. Although our album Full Fathom 5 is available on all major streaming services.
Cool. So not hard to find you guys. Psychomanteum.
Yep, we're out there.
Cool. Listen, looking forward to hanging out with you October 28th and stuff like that. And like I said, we'll have you guys back when you release the album. We're going to cut out to Strange Voltage, and then I will be back.
In the
Oh, yeah, a little bit of Strange Voltage from Psychomanteum. Again, they'll be performing Saturday, October 28th as part of the Rock and Oddities Con, Saratoga Springs. I'm going to play another band in a little bit that will be at that event, and that band is The Tradition. Really cool guys. A little bit different style and stuff, but it's one of the things I really love about what Jem is doing. It's a lot of good rock and roll. Some of it is deeper metal, but they're all reflective of the core of rock and roll, as I like to call it. I want to shout out my sisters, Teresa and Oracles, and I have to give Oracle some words because she almost fucked up my interview. I saw the thing come through the chat, and my natural instinct as a wolf was I was immediately just going to jump all over that shit. But I was in the middle of a conversation with the dude, so I was just like, all right. Well played, sister. You almost completely derailed me. Not that I can't fuck up my own show on my own way. You've heard me do it. That's the beauty of the live stuff. I am not a polished broadcaster. Not sure that I really would want to be, because I think that would take away from, really the part of the reasons why I do it. I like the organic element, and not having it be perfect, I think is prettier. It's more attractive to me, at least. I love you too, you purple-assed woman. Yes. But again, some of this also too are the personal dynamics that we share. We banter back and forth. But there's a deeper respect, there's a deeper love. Okay, it's not just about that ass. But there are moments that we all get caught off guard. You know what I mean? And having better luck selling my bathwater. That was well played. Because I can't even explain it. It hit me with this fucked up visual, and the visual just started to override the brain. So luckily, my mother taught me well enough to know how to ignore a moment and then come back to it. So, of course, I had to come back to it. But I also want to talk about Saturday. Saturday, I'm going to throw the other graphic up because I can. Let me just find this here in my mess of promotions. Yes, here we go. Scroll on down, Wolf. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, yes. Those of you who know, who have been following me, know I also do a radio show on WRFC, the Music and Magic Show. Saturday, over at the House of Guitars, we did our first little rock show. And we had a bunch of bands that came out. I opened it up with some of the other wolves from the radio station, Brian Maslin, Brian Judah, my brother Ed Contini, Greg Carr-Schumann, Mark Toonlin, and my son, Will. And we had Jeanette and Greg's boy, Randy, a.k.a. Mr. Wick. He came up there and closed out the show with us. And one of the things that I've done for a long time, and I've talked about this, has been within the scope of, dealing with certain things as it reflects to autism, be it, through music or through fundraising, the Under My Skin for Life Foundation. So to have Randy, be able to come up there, and again, for all intents and purposes, this kid was written off. He was told, because he's autistic, he'll never be able to do this, he'll never be vocal, blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. Okay? The kid is incredible. The kid has magic. Too many of these children I have seen get written off just because they're fucking different. So part of my mission in life is to prove those fucking assholes wrong. So again, same as we did last year at the Arts for Autism Festival. Okay, we brought Randy up, and he did another brick in the wall with us, and it was a fucking blast. And that, to me, is real magic. And Chris Miller, you can tell Hilton Hotels to go fuck themselves. See, here's another guy that can just throw me off the thing. You know what I mean? Not a word from this guy the whole fucking time. But he heard about Paris Hilton's vagina, and he shows up. Hilton Hotels, that's right. You can get a room and a slice of vagina. And just use coupon code Chris Miller when you make your reservation. That one's for you, brother. See, two can play at that fucking game. I'm not afraid anymore, okay? If anything this podcast has done to me, it's proven that, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go over here. And I'm not going to be afraid. And again, you know, take what you need, leave the rest behind. He knows that. But, you know, especially as Oracle says, you know, if you're going to be late, you have to make an entrance. So I had two people make entrances. You know, my mother came in. She does that subtle thing. She's, you know, whispering words of wisdom. Let it be. That's how I react to those things. So in talking about Saturday, because I digress and I'm distracted, one of the bands that was out there that I really, really have grown to love. I really like their music. And I like them as people and getting to know them. They have character. They have heart. They have soul. Okay. And my sister, Teresa Bidwell, she is the singer and guitar player for Hollowell. She and I have been talking a lot back and forth about reworking some of the dynamics of the music scene up here, because it really is a little ass backwards. You have a lot of good bands, and the only thing that's holding these bands back up here, at least, is because they're original bands. For whatever reason, the clubs just, they want the fucking jukebox. And I appreciate cover bands. I play covers as well, too. Okay. But there has to be a middle ground for original bands, okay? Because original bands create new music, okay? I love hearing certain things and I love playing certain things, but I want to hear new shit too, okay? And Hollowell is bringing that new stuff, and they're working on finishing up their album. They're going to be doing shows up here next year, and I'm honored and proud, you know, to be one of the people supporting that and to be one of the people that's going to make some of that happen, because that's the beautiful thing now between the radio station and the podcast and some of the other things that myself and Judah and Ed Contini and Shai and others have been working, is to create a new framework for it. It's the old analogy. If you want something done right, you have to fucking do it yourself. So we're going to fucking do it. Okay? Because we can. So that's where it's at. So I'm going to take a break real quick, kind of get my thoughts back in after almost getting drowned in the bathtub by the oracles. And it's one of the go-to Hollowell tracks until we get more. But it's also a really cool video, too. So sit back, enjoy a little bit of Hollowell, and then I'll be back.
Treat the poison they
everyone, it's the Old Wolf inviting you to join me Monday, October 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a Halloween special episode of the Music and Magic Show where I'm going to rebroadcast the original Mercury Theater production of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds as directed and narrated by the one and only Orson Welles. Again, only on Rochester Free Radio, WRFZ 106.3 FM LP. Yes, my mother said it perfectly. Some great video editing. They proved, I think, in a really nice way, that there's so much stuff out there that you can take and you can use to create other things with. And I love the black and white reflective elements. Shai used the exact same analogy when she did the video for The View Below, a track that I released last year. And it was a bunch of black and white photography from a friend of ours, Rick Garrity. But it is worth mentioning again. Listen, all the great, special effects and things, they're cool. They can be nice, but most of us don't have the fucking money to do that kind of production. It's hard enough to produce a song, let alone produce a video to go with it. And to certain degrees, that is the expectation out there if you want to promote your music. It just is what it is. Radio is an older art form. We're still trying to keep it alive, but I would be lying if I said that, the internet isn't where the future is. So I'm trying to pretty much maintain a bridge between both ends of the world and trying to keep some of those dynamics alive. The little promo that I played after the Hollowell's No Wings video was my Halloween show that I'm going to do on WRFZ. I'm going to rebroadcast the original War of the Worlds as it was done on the radio 85 years ago. You know what I mean? And, some of it is a little bit lost in the historical narrative, and I'll talk a little bit about that more that Monday night. But it was the only way that people experienced those types of things if they didn't read it. Radio was new technology at the time. So that's where people were getting a lot of their news. That's where they were getting their entertainment. In some ways, that's where they were getting their entertainment, their literature. The Mercury Theater did all types of different productions of things as radio shows. Okay. And then obviously that expanded and became, movies and became TV. And, here we are now. But the driving human element, as I've been talking a lot about tonight, is still the same. So, these are the little things that you can see reflective in what people do. Using Hollowell's analogy, you know what I mean? They took their song and then they framed it around imagery. And as my mother said, incredibly beautiful editing to really tie it together and make it work. Now, the strength of the song is still the strength of the song. You know what I mean? Because I play it on the radio without the video elements, and it's still a fucking great track. You know what I mean? So, you can make a case, well, this is just an extra layer. You know what I mean? It's, it's like getting, a little bit, extra whipped cream on your sundae, or whatever analogy you want to use. But having seen them perform live now and met them in person, it's even more important, to vocalize these things. These aren't people that are getting rich. They do it because they love it. They're family people. They have lives. They have children. They have hopes, dreams, loves, everything that goes along with it. And they still took the time to come out and support what we were doing. And that means a lot. So, sister, thank you again for coming out Saturday. Thank you for bringing your beautiful family. I can't wait to get you on this because you and I know, based on some of our conversations Saturday, we're going to have some fucking conversations. And they're going to be good conversations. They're conversations that need to be had. Okay? We have to talk about the things that are going around, good, bad, or indifferent. This is how we set the stage proverbially, not only as musicians, but for our children for the future. So I'm going to keep doing that, and I know Hollowell is going to keep doing that. Now, again, I purposely ignored an earlier comment because, once again, and my sister Oracles has this ability, okay? And she enjoys it. I know she does because I know her. She likes to push on the edges to see the kind of, reaction. It's reflective in her writing. I've had her on the show. If you'd like to learn more about oracles, you can definitely go back to the podcast archives and listen to the two of us dancing. But the Hilton bathtub, all right, and I'm just going to put it out there, okay? If I'm going to sell my bathwater, it's definitely not going to be out of the Hilton bathtub, okay? It's just never going to fucking happen, okay? And especially in the analogy where that conversation, and I don't want the visual of Paris Hilton in my head anymore, okay? I really don't. So I said it offhandedly. It's my own fault. I opened the fucking door. And of course, not unlike a demented Cronenberg Kool-Aid Paris. So for those of you at home who want to experience my trauma, it's basically what would happen if the Kool-Aid man in Paris Hilton got beamed up through the Enterprise's transporters in the first Star Trek movie. And, the circus, Captain, I don't know what to find. They just got fucking blended together into this ungodly South Park monstrosity where it's just basically, what it is. So it's the Kool-Aid man, but with Paris Hilton's gaping vagina. Yes, that is Laura. I have Shia here standing next to me. She's just pointing at the other mic. She wants me. All right, fuck it. All right, Wish, I'll put you on.
Play fucked up games, win fucked up prizes.
Yeah, isn't
all.
Isn't that the story of my life? Chris Miller still Paris Hilton. Beam me up. See, my brother Chris Miller, he's the kind of guy that would drink that fucked up Kool-Aid. All right. I'm going to tell Susie, she's going to have to work some of that fucking black magic on you, man. You don't want to go there, all right? Really, really, despite everything maybe you've done in your life, nobody deserves that, okay? It's an illusion. It's bullshit. Trust me. In the immortal words of Jim Kirk, you don't want to go where too many others have gone before. It's not worth the ride, man, and the juice is definitely not worth the fucking squeeze, okay? These are illusions, okay? You want somebody like an Oracles. You want somebody like I guarantee you, Oracles would fuck your world up, okay? And Susie would enjoy watching it. That's all I'm going to say on that. That's all I'm going to say. So, again, I want to really thank the guys from Psychomanteum for taking the time to come out. It was really cool conversations. Really cool band, Yes, I know you me love the Kool-Aid. Chris Miller in all his glory, his moment. Listen, man, I could quote some historical context about the dangers of Kool-Aid, but that would just probably compel you to drink it all the more. In your words, you don't give a fuck, right? Chris Miller does not give a fuck. Love you, brother. Only you would drink that Kool-Aid, man. Yeah, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around it. These are not the visuals I wanted. Where's Obi-Wan Kenobi when you need him? Nowhere to be found. So before I forget, I want to talk about one other thing. And in all seriousness, I want to thank Loretta Mechanic for her support for the radio station. She's going to be performing up here in Rochester, New York, October 17th over at the Kodak Theater as part of her The Visit Revisited anniversary tour. For those of you who don't know, Lorena is one of the premier prominent voices in what is referred to as Celtic music, multi-platinum, 2-time Grammy nominee. She's done movies. She's done television series. Incredibly powerful voice, incredibly powerful music. And full disclosure, Shai has been a fan of hers for many, many, many years, and a lot of people within the pagan magic / witch communities, they love her because of what she does. She is a magical person. She started her own record label to continue her music, and she's really an inspiring person. But she really wanted, I wanted, this was something she wanted to do. So I made it happen. I reached out to her people and set it all up. Shai and Otivia from the radio station are going to be covering that show at the Kodak Theater again, October 17th in Rochester, New York. I tell you, she doesn't do a whole lot of shows. After this, she's going to be doing some Canadian shows, and then she's off to Europe and the United Kingdom, and who knows when she's going to go back out again. So if you're into this, this is definitely, the tour to catch. You know what I mean? And she isn't just a musician. She brings a full-blown experience, okay? And anybody in the music scene knows this. It is not easy or cheap to put on these kind of shows anymore. The dynamics of promotion, the life out of the music scene. So really, props humbly for what she continues to do. She truly loves her fans, and we are honored to be a part of it. So again, Lorena McKennitt, the Visit Revisited Anniversary Tour, October 17th, Kodak Theater, Rochester, New York. And Shai will be talking a little bit more about that. We're working on getting a release from her record company that we can actually play her music. She's actually one of the musicians that we can't play because of the way the licensing and the bullshit between online music and FM radio is. Yeah, we have the FM radio licensing, but you can't do that out here without some real specific types of things being signed off on. So we're working on that, and we're going to continue to work on getting more bands and stuff, more interesting people. I'm going to have an interesting show next week. I'm going to have Bonded by Darkness on again. My brother Josh and my sister Raven, they're going to talk about their upcoming October 20th show with Frail. Okay. And I'm also going to have somebody else, another interesting person. I had a really great conversation with earlier today in setting this up. Okay. And his name is David Spinks. And he's a paranormal investigator. He's been all over TV, written multiple books. He's one of the premier guys out there in the paranormal investigation field. Okay. And he's going to come on with me, and we're going to dive deep into the shit. Cool guy. It's going to be a cool thing. He's going to be at the Rockin' Oddities Con, October 28th, Saratoga Springs. So, a lot of these people, again, it's not always just about music. Some of it's magic. Some of the things that are in between. Some of it's in the shadows. Some of it is this. And my mother has a clarification for me, and I'm going to read this quote. By the way, your woke comment, today's world has bastardized the meaning. It's an age-old phrase from the black community, basically meaning pay attention to what's around you. Wake up. I'm woke. Thank you for sharing that. I wasn't 100% sure. I've read a couple different interpretations on this in the pure spirit of it. I believe that we do need to pay more attention to the stuff that's around us. But I think in your comment definitely confirms that it's been co-opted and has been weaponized to certain degrees to frame other elements around us, either to be dismissive or to, again, try and ridicule or whatever particular little side agenda is going on. And those of you who'd like to learn more about what my mother's got to say, there's a couple of podcasts. I think you've done 2 with me now, where she gets into some really cool stuff. She takes a look back at some of the reflections, not only from her growing up, but also the dynamic of being a parent, the aspects of music that are shared generationally between her, myself, and my son. And she has been, and I know it's rattling around in your head, and since you decided to step out of the shadows, I'm going to throw it out there. I really think you should do a podcast. I think you would be great at it. I think you and Linda could offer a whole lot of knowledge and insight. And I really would like to see it happen. Even if you two want to just come on here and co-op my show, I would gladly step off to the side and let you two run with it because I believe it's important. So yeah, this is me. Nudge, nudge. Wink, wink. Love you, Ma. So again, thank you for taking the time to hang, dance with these wolves. Like I said, next week I got a really, really cool show. It's going to be kind of a double element thing. It's going to be a little bit longer because I want to give Josh and Raven time to not only play some of their music, but talk about what's going on with them, the show that's going on with Frail. And then, again, going to jump around the corner and, get into a little bit different type of stuff with David Spinks. And I believe, again, that energy and magic are just different words. Music is a form of magic. These are all they're just images. They're labels that we put on the things around us to give them sense. You know what I mean? Because we can't have just this static void. So we translate it as best we can. The beauty of when we can get together and we can have these conversations, and we can learn new things, we can understand things. And sometimes the old narratives can be corrected. We can see things now for what they really are. And in the simplest analogy, the only way to change things is you have to know what they are first. In other words, without truth, you can't change it. It's just like a dog chasing its tail. It's smoke and mirrors. You have to have a tangible context. So be it through music, be it through magic, be it through life, whatever the case, it all reflects back. These are all just translations of the same thing. Every love song, every sad story, every sexy whatever, you know what I mean? They're all reflective of the human experience. So these emotions, these things that we feel are universal. It's just the faces and the backgrounds that are different. So I'm going to close it out with my new track. It will be going up on YouTube soon. I promise I would take care of it. For whatever reason, I've just been dealing with everything else, and I just haven't bothered to put it out there. I've been playing it on the radio a little bit. The video is officially done. The track is officially mastered. This is the final version, and, again, it's another one of those collaborative elements. You got Matt Brown on vocals. You got Tony Rodriguez on bass. You got Jeff Thal on drums, me on guitar again, obviously. Shia did the video for it. And then it's for the Fire Witch of Lithuania, a friend of mine who kind of just, showed up one day, and we started talking and found that we had a lot of common interest. And in sharing her experiences and stories, those of you who know me know that a lot of my music, especially now that I write, is reflective of my experiences with other people, their stories to many degrees, from whatever angle that may be. So until next time, remember, sometimes it's good to dance with the wolves, okay? If you want anybody really, truly that's going to have your back, yeah, that's what wolves do. Okay. They're not just these scary monsters. Okay. They are fiercely protective. They love the people around them, but they don't play fucked up games. As Shia said, play fucked up games, win fucked up prizes. So I humbly recommend everybody get a little bit of wolf in your life. So again, closing out with the Pocket Full of Wolves new track, 8 of Swords. And until next week, I am and shall continue to be the wolf.